Thank you, Patrick, for that sobering presentation and for your work. You said that it was not easy to write those books, and I spent 2 or 3 hours. I've read 2 chapters and scanned the thicker book, and it's not comfortable even to read it because it's so counterintuitive and so unnatural. And so another round of applause for what you're doing. But I don't want to leave this topic because I want to demonstrate something to you about the relevance of the UPF movement in a deeper, broader context. I asked Patrick, who does he work with in the States? There's a whole bunch of organizations that are very alert about this problem, the LGBT, breakdown of the family, the whole same-sex trend, all of that going on. It's cultural, it's media, it's in the younger education side. I was just reading an article from, is it Bill Brown of the National Organization of Families of Marriage? Yeah, right. And he did a piece on Fortune 100 companies essentially embracing the gay agenda or the LGBT agenda. So you have Hulu on, or Netflix with using the rainbow colors and things like that. I'm not going to take time to get into that right now, but what I would like to put forth is the serious need. It's a life and death need in terms of civilization as we know it, that we have got to find new, as Douglas MacArthur said at the end of World War II, on that famous speech he gave after they signed the treaty with Japan. We need new instrumentalities to face the problems we're having. The level of penetration is not anything like we've seen before. You remember the slides that Honorable Eknok showed earlier today in terms of Nepal and different parts of India, other places in South Asia, where the so-called marriage blessing movement is picking up steam. Around the world, it's noted that the work going on under Dr. Yong's leadership and in the Asia-Pacific region is unique. No one comes close to it, even in with all due respect to the great stuff happening in America, and there's some very important new ground being broken of Christians working together with Reverend and Mrs. Moon's views, right? But what you're doing in this part of the world isn't happening anywhere. What's happening is a cultural movement, and Dr. Kittle's going to address this a little bit later in much greater depth. He's probably one of the top global scholars and practitioners. But here's the point. The marriage blessing movement and the theory behind that is it dismantles the basis of everything that Patrick was talking about. Down at the DNA level, it dismantles it. Spiritually, psychologically, physically, health-wise, in every way. And I think our folks have done the best we can kind of pioneering this with Reverend and Mrs. Moon's guidance and support. But I really recommend for the whole region to take a deep look at this and help be an owner of it and get involved, because when you bring God and spirituality into marriage based on that essential biblical truth, which is resonant with the Quran, it's resonant with Buddhism and Confucianism, it's a universal value. Biology is male and female. Life doesn't get created when 2 men have sex, or 2 women, right? It's so basic. And that attack on that institution, that core institution, is like the epitome of evil and darkness, right? It dismantles and creates chaos. And the obvious mental and physical health challenges of young people in terms of the transgender issue and stuff. I can't wait to get back into his book and work with it. But beyond that, I tend to be a strategist. I get very frustrated when I don't see roadmaps. I like to find roadmaps to solve problems. And I think that this is what I think. I will state this as an observation of reality, that people are prepared around the world, like Patrick and dozens of other experts who have put their careers on the line in the medical and psychological field around the world, who are faith-based, come from different persuasions, who, if they were brought together and collaborated, you'd create a critical mass of impact. And then when you tie that together with the IAPP, when you pull together, what did Eknach say? 5,000 parliamentarians around the world? I would venture to say that 93.7% is the instinctive number that I'm kind of an intuitive. It's about that scale of parliamentarians that would be willing to sign a resolution, pass a law, make a statement, put their reputation out there, because once you start to speak against that darkness, even though you may get slapped, okay, you get slapped and you come right back because you know what's true, right? You know it, sir. I could tell both David and Congressman Amato, you know that reality. And one of the things I wanted to speak about today was this whole issue of political correctness, the psychological manipulation that goes on. We work with a woman in Washington by the name of Stella Morabito. I highly recommend you look her up. She writes for thefederalist.com. She's a PhD psychologist. Her career at the CIA for about 25 years, her job during the Cold War was to analyze Soviet propaganda, Soviet linguistic manipulation of how they were able to control masses by the way they manipulate language. And she did a tremendous backgrounder on, and she's an expert, she's known all over Washington as an expert on the insidious impact of political correctness, why it works. What it does is it shuts down your willingness to speak out because you don't want to be shamed. All human beings have this fundamental need to be in community. So if you say something like, God, I just don't feel comfortable with this thing, and someone hears it who's on the political correct attack side and shames you, right? Then you recoil, so you don't even want to talk. You don't say things that you know are true, and you start to not even think them. So it affects your mind. And that's the way that political correctness works. The alternative to that, the antidote, is to speak out. And not only to speak out individually, and this comes into another tremendous value I applaud True Mother and True Father, Reverend and Mrs. Moon, for. They constituted this idea, and I recommend you look into it. And it's an ancient idea that Edmund Burke, the British theoretician, used to talk about. Democracy can't survive. I'm paraphrasing it, but the essence of democracy is based on small platoons of people, church, family, community, associations. De Tocqueville saw that in America. It's the nature of the human spirit to want to congregate in community. So what did Reverend and Mrs. Moon do? They launched this thing called tribes, heavenly tribes. Build networks of people that relate with the same value perspective. Doesn't mean if you're Catholic you're going to go to a Buddhist church, or Islamic you're going to change it. Doesn't mean that at all. But it means, and I take these words as so sacred, it's so powerful, of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universal values. That comes right out of the book of Reverend Moon's deep analysis of the Bible, the Divine Principle. Look it up. It's profound. If you match those pillar themes up to the ideology that undergirds the LGBT side, or the ideology that undergirds terrorism, as our friend from India talked about earlier today, which I fully support his view. If you show that concept of interdependence, that we all are part of the same family, that we need to be mutually prosperous, and most importantly, that there are universal values. Let's articulate those. At the root of those universal values is the notion of what it means to be a human being, and then what it means to be a family. So then, Reverend, they build this network of tribes. If you're not part of one, you need to start one, even when she talks to parliamentarians. Build a tribe, a network of people. Build that community. It's like the Benedict option, which is a very popular book in evangelical Christianity now. The monk Benedict, when the Dark Ages were happening, he brought Christians together into community to reconsolidate strength. We're being overwhelmed around the world. When you hear him talk and others like it, it's like, where the hell is things, what's going on? How did this happen? Right? But the antidote to this is pull together in community. That's the reason why I thank God that this organization exists. It's like very rare. There's not too many groups like this that bring all kinds of different people together. So it's that convening a tribe, and it's the thought or universal values that are so important. And we need you to contribute to that, to bring everything you've got, put it on the table with this effort. That's the point I want to make. In terms of media, we know that there's problems in the media all over the place. A large part of that comes just like with in the world of medicine or in the world of education, how journalists are trained and the elitism in that, and so much celebrity journalism. And I don't want to take too much time on that, other than I think, by a show of hands, how many people here think that there's bias in the media, wherever you're from, if you're an Australian or wherever. And I'm going to ask you, because we've been talking a lot up here. Look at how many put them up there? Now look around, just look around. What would you say? That's about 82%, 83%, maybe 84% of the room. So what's an example of media bias that you can think of that you've seen in your, what's some empirical data? Any examples of that? Yes, ma'am.
One of the big things they do is actually no platform reviews that they don't want.
Could you stand up and speak up a little louder? We're going to get the mic here.
The media.
One of the things they do, which is sort of the opposite to what you're saying about what they showcase, they actually no platform the views that they don't want spread. Speakers and viewpoints.
Okay, right. So you mean the platform they shut down, like such as Google and Twitter and stuff. That's going on big time in the States right now. What other examples of abuse? Yes, sir. Mr. Speaker.
I would say that a lot of media today is all about shock, horror, probe. That lacks actually probity in what it's actually doing. So it's all about sensationalism and what sells newspapers.
Okay. How many people agree with that?